Welcome to the Pardej channel. Today, we explain Prophet Samuel 2, chapter 16, in a clear and simple way, step by step. Okay, everyone, get ready, because we are diving right into an incredibly action-packed text today. We're going to go verse by verse and really uncover the plain, simple meaning of what's going on here, what we call the Peshat. It's going to be a fascinating explainer.
Like I said, our main goal today is to uncover the crucial turning points in this biblical history. We're keeping it straightforward, accessible, and totally focused on the text itself.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, context and chapter walkthrough. Second, Ziba and the provisions. Third, Shimei curses King David. Fourth, Absalom arrives in Jerusalem. Fifth, Ahithophel's treacherous advice. And finally, number 6, key ideas and life lessons.
Okay, section 1, context and chapter walkthrough. Let's set the stage really quickly.
So right off the bat, we've got this dual trajectory happening. King David, the great monarch of Israel, has literally just been forced to flee his own capital of Jerusalem. And why? Because his very own son, Absalom, has launched a massive, shocking political coup against him. So David and his loyal followers are heading out into the harsh wilderness. They are physically and emotionally exhausted. Chapter 16 brilliantly splits our focus right down the middle. The first half follows David's painful, humiliating descent into the desert, while the second half snaps back to show us Absalom's arrogant, calculated rise to power in the capital.
All right, moving to section 2, Ziba and the provisions. Let's see who David meets right past the summit.
This next part perfectly illustrates just how desperate and exhausted David's camp really is. Right after passing the summit, David runs into a guy named Ziba. Now, Ziba is the steward, basically the estate manager for Mephibosheth. And remember, Mephibosheth is the grandson of the former king, Saul. Well, Ziba definitely doesn't come empty-handed. He brings a whole string of saddled donkeys, and just listen to these provisions. 200 loaves of bread, 100 cakes of raisins, 100 cakes of figs, and a skin of wine. When the king asks him, "Hey, why did you bring all this?" Ziba's got a very practical answer. He says the donkeys are for the royal household to ride, the food is for the men, and the wine is to refresh anyone who gets exhausted out in the harsh desert. Since David's men are literally starving and on the run, this seems like an absolute lifesaver, an incredible act of loyalty, right?
But there is a huge catch here, and this is where the plain text gets intensely political. David naturally asks Ziba, "Wait, where is your master's grandson? Where is Mephibosheth?" And Ziba claims that Mephibosheth actually stayed behind in Jerusalem. Why? Well, according to Ziba, Mephibosheth thinks that with all this chaos from Absalom's coup, the house of Israel is finally going to hand the kingdom back to Saul's bloodline today. Now, the absolute crucial point here is David's reaction. You have to remember, David is incredibly vulnerable right now. He's fleeing for his life, he's exhausted, and he just got this massive, life-saving gift of food. So he believes Ziba's report completely. He immediately turns to him and says, "All that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours." Ziba just bows humbly and says he hopes to continue finding favor in the king's eyes. It is a massive, sweeping transfer of wealth and land based entirely on one unverified report in the middle of a chaotic retreat.
Let's turn to section 3, Shimei curses King David. Talk about a hostile encounter.
Just imagine this terrifying scene for a second. As King David approaches Bahurim, this man named Shimei, the son of Gera, comes out to meet them, but unlike Ziba, he is definitely not bringing bread and wine. Shimei is from the same exact clan as Saul's family, and he comes out absolutely screaming curses at David. He physically attacks the royal procession. He starts pelting David and his high-ranking officials with stones. He's literally kicking up and showering the exhausted king with dirt as they walk along the hillside. And what's he yelling? He's telling David to get out, calling him a scoundrel and accusing him of shedding the blood of Saul's household. In Shimei's mind, Absalom's coup is straight-up divine retribution. He claims the Lord handed the kingdom over to Absalom as a direct punishment for David destroying Saul's dynasty.
Now, Shimei keeps screaming this specific phrase, "man of blood." That's a literal translation from the Hebrew text, and it is a severe accusation. By calling David a man of blood, Shimei is essentially branding him a murderer and a violent usurper. He's claiming that David's entire throne was built on the unjust slaughter of Saul's family, and so he thinks David is finally getting what he deserves. From Shimei's perspective, looking strictly at the historical transition of power from Saul to David, this raw anger feels entirely justified to him.
Obviously, David's fierce, battle-hardened military men are not just going to stand by and watch their king get pelted with rocks and dirt. Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, who is one of David's top generals, steps up immediately. He looks at Shimei, then looks at David, and basically says, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? let me just go over there and cut off his head. Honestly, it's a completely natural military reaction to treason and a physical assault on a monarch. But David issues a firm and honestly shocking refusal.
Take a look at David's response here, because it reveals just incredible self-control and humility. David snaps back at his general, asking, "What do you and I have in common, you sons of Zeruiah?" He completely rejects their violent instinct. Instead, David reasons that, hey, if the Lord told Shimei to curse him, who is Abishai to question it? Plus, David points out the deeply tragic irony of his own situation. His own son, his literal flesh and blood, is actively trying to kill him right now. So why shouldn't this Benjamite from Saul's clan hurl curses at him? David orders his men to just leave Shimei alone. His profound hope here isn't for revenge, it's actually for mercy. He says, "It may be that the Lord will see my distress and repay me with good for the cursing I am receiving today." And so they just keep walking down the road. The king and his people are exhausted, and Shimei is literally walking parallel to them on the opposite hillside, throwing stones, kicking up dirt, and screaming curses the whole way.
Moving on to Section 4, Absalom arrives in Jerusalem. The coup advances.
So, in verse 15, the camera pans and we see Absalom and all the men of Israel arriving in Jerusalem. Right away, Absalom's brand new court is defined by two major advisors. Understanding who these guys are is essential. On one side, you have Hushai the Archite. If you remember from earlier chapters, Hushai is actually David's deeply loyal friend. He's been secretly sent back into the city to act as a spy and sabotage Absalom's plans. Hushai walks right up to Absalom and boldly declares, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" On the flip side, we have Ahithophel. Now, Ahithophel used to be King David's most brilliant and trusted counselor, but he has committed full-on treason. He defected to Absalom's side and is now the primary strategic mastermind behind this entire coup.
Now, Absalom is no fool. He's immediately suspicious of Hushai. He challenges him right to his face, asking, "Is this the love you show your friend? Why didn't you go with your friend David?" This moment brilliantly showcases Hushai's quick thinking. He doesn't panic at all. Instead, he uses perfectly logical, plain arguments to spin his web of deception. He tells Absalom, "No, the one chosen by the Lord, by these people, and by all the men of Israel, his I will be, and I will remain with him." Notice what he did there? He never actually said Absalom's name. Clever, right? Then he adds, "Furthermore, whom should I serve? Should I not serve the son? Just as I served your father, so I will serve you." It is just a masterful piece of political survival. Through flattery and smooth logic, Hushai safely embeds himself right into Absalom's inner circle.
Now for Section 5, Ahithophel's treacherous advice, a truly brutal strategy.
Absalom looks over at Ahithophel and asks, "Give us your advice. What should we do next?" Ahithophel's response is an incredibly cold, brutal political calculation. He advises Absalom to publicly lie with his father's concubines. These are the women David specifically left behind to look after the palace. Ahithophel lays out the strategy plain and simple. By doing this, Absalom will make himself a permanent offense to his father's nostrils. It's an act of total, unforgivable violation. Ahithophel argues that once the rebellion sees that any reconciliation between the father and son is totally impossible, the hands of everyone following Absalom will be strengthened. They'll fight that much harder because they'll know there's absolutely no turning back. So following this deeply treacherous advice, they literally pitch a tent for Absalom up on the palace roof, and he commits this act in the sight of all Israel.
Let's clarify exactly what's happening here just so we understand the sheer gravity of the text. In the ancient Near East, concubines were secondary wives. So claiming the harem of the previous monarch was not just some personal insult. It was a formal, public, and totally irreversible declaration that you were usurping the throne and all of the previous king's property. The text really goes out of its way to emphasize how much weight Ahithophel's words carried, noting that back in those days, his advice was treated as if a man literally inquired of the word of God. That is how seriously both David and Absalom regarded his strategic brilliance, no matter how wicked or calculating it was.
Okay, Section 6, Key Ideas and Life Lessons. Let's look at some practical takeaways.
I want to pose this question directly to you, our viewers. What practical life lessons can we learn from this chapter? I mean, we've just seen intense betrayal, humiliation, clever political maneuvering, and, honestly, incredible personal restraint. So let's distill these literal events into some actionable concepts for our own lives.
First off, we learn a massive lesson about enduring hardship. Look at King David. In what might be his absolute lowest moment, literally being pelted with rocks and curses, he accepts humiliation without returning violence. He trusts the situation to God rather than just giving in to his general's desire for blood. Second, we see the real danger of deception.
Ziba opportunistically uses a moment of pure chaos to advance his own position at his master's expense. Third, we're reminded that words have immense power. Hushai doesn't need to use a sword. He uses carefully chosen, logical words to save his own life and keep his mission alive. And finally, we see the undeniable weight of consequences. David is fleeing for his life, experiencing betrayal left and right, and part of this is a consequence of the instability he allowed within his own house. Our past actions often catch up to us, and resilience is exactly how we survive them.
Let's do a really quick, chronological recap to solidify this dense chapter in our memories before we go. Step 1. David, exhausted on the road, receives desperately needed food, but also a highly questionable report from Ziba, which leads David to hand over all of Mephibosheth's estate. Step 2. David humbly endures violent curses, rocks, and dirt from Shimei, flat out refusing to let his men strike back. Step 3. The scene shifts back to Jerusalem, where Absalom takes the city and the spy Hushai cleverly talks his way into the brand new royal court. And Step 4. Absalom listens to the treacherous Ahithophel and publicly claims his father's concubines to irreversibly cement his rebellion in the eyes of all Israel.
Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.